Hey, brother teacher here. I would like to talk to you about 5 food categories that cause cancer. Now, I've talked in time past about cancer causing foods or components of foods that are carcinogenic, which are cancer causing agents, in other words. And to some of you, this may be familiar, and to others, this may be new, but uh, be that as it may, I'm going to do it anyway. And let's just consider this a um, recent version of what I've talked about in time past. So I'm going to look at my notes real quick so that I don't forget anything. And I'm going to start with number 1 as being artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners cause cancer in the human body. First of all, the operative word is artificial sweetener. It's not real. It doesn't grow on a tree or a plant or a vine. It doesn't come from nature directly. It's artificially made in a laboratory. And these are items such as food products that contain aspartame and NutraSweet, Equal, and Splenda, those pink, yellow, and blue packets that you put into your coffee, on your food, some people. These things cause cancer. And that also includes refined white sugar, the table sugar that you are accustomed to, that you put in your coffee or your tea, or you make your Kool-Aid with, and things like this. But that refined sugar is not as bad as, even though it's bad, it's not as bad as the aforementioned Splenda, aspartame type, and so forth. Now, alternatives to artificial sweeteners is coconut sugar, agave, manuka honey, and stevia. All of these are natural. They come from nature itself. Okay, even when you are using natural sugars, do those also sparingly. Just because it's a natural sugar does not mean that done in excess it won't cause issues with your body over time. That's your liver, your pancreas, and your kidneys, and your arteries, and so forth. So these artificial sugars, or sugar in general, causes a inflammation of the blood, and then inflammation of the blood transfers to the arteries, and it begins to break down the artery walls, and then your liver begins to secrete or excrete cholesterol to patch up these abrasions, as it were, in the artery walls. And that's where you get the placation in the arteries. And when the artery is like this, it begins to shrink in size, and it gets more and more narrow, hence causing constriction, or a smaller space where your blood can barely move through, and then your heart's busy pumping trying to get that blood through there, and then you have what we call hypertension or high blood pressure. Then ultimately and potentially heart attacks and strokes, because the blood cannot get through the body in the way, in the manner, in the speed in which it was intended by nature, because we have a build up within the artery walls. Okay, so you want to eliminate these sugars. Number 2, GMOs, GMO foods, genetically modified organisms. Everything that we consume should come from nature. It's really simple. Anything that doesn't come from nature, and we are nature, it's an imposter. So when some scientist in the laboratory starts splitting genes and adding something that's not natural to something that is natural, then you're going to end up with something that's counterfeit, and it's not the real thing. And your body's going to recognize that it's not the real thing, and then it's going to be an adverse reaction. And you're going to cause havoc inside the human body. The organs are not going to work. The biology of the body is not going to work, period, the way in which it was intended by nature. So genetically modified organisms are not healthy for the human body and or consumption, and it does indeed, or they do indeed, cause cancer as well. That's number 2. Number 3, conventional meat. Now, In and of itself, if cattle were to eat grass as nature intended them to eat, you wouldn't have a problem with disease as it relates to eating meat. But the problem is, cattle that go to the supermarket, for the most part, they're fed grains. That's not their diet. That's not the diet that nature intended for them to have. So this is not going to fare well with the cattle. And then the cattle are going to develop disease. They're going to become sick. And so what they generally do is start giving these cattle antibiotics. They give them hormones and steroids and antibiotics. And again, they're feeding them with genetically modified corn and even soybeans and similar items as well, in place of their actual natural grass-fed diet. So that makes the meat not good for human consumption, because whatever the cow is eating, we are eating that as well. And if you have sickly cattle, then you're going to have sickly human beings. All right? So that's 1, 2, 3. Now we're on number 4, and then we have one after that. Won't hold your patience very long. Hydrogenated oils. That's soy, sunflower, cottonseed, safflower, corn oil, and even vegetable oil. Now, this is probably or perhaps one of the worst cancer-causing food products, if you will. These oils, one doctor, I want to say his name was Glidden, he said that this is nothing more than cancer in the bottle. When you go down your grocery aisle and you see all of these bottles of cooking oils in liquid form, they are hydrogenated oils. They're yellowish clear. They are already unstable because, number one, they're exposed to light and even heat in many instances. But this is exacerbated when you heat these oils up in a skillet or pan. You are talking about instability in the human body. They are already unstable in the bottle. Once you consume them, especially after you have heated these oils up to hundreds of degrees, frying food in it, what you're going to have is a field day with your free radicals in your body. And your body is going to be in a state of chaos trying to deal with these free radicals. So, cancer in the bottle is what your oils are. There are some more natural oils that you can use. And I would suggest that if you use cooking oils, use extra virgin olive oil. Even though it can be unstable as well, but make sure that when you are cooking anything in olive oil or even in coconut oil, make sure it's on a stir fryer type basis, that you're constantly staying there monitoring it and making sure that it keeps moving. Don't submerge it in oil where it's just bubbling and frying. That's a no-no. Stir fry if you're going to do it, and do it for a short period of time. Okay, that's it. So that was number 4, and the last one, but not the least, conventional dairy. I've heard many people say that they drink raw milk. Muslims, African people that I know, and various other cultures, they drink raw milk as opposed to the dairy that we buy in the conventional grocery store. And they say it's healthier for you. My family and I, we don't consume dairy, period, any longer. Now, if you want to drink raw milk, I should say, then that's your choice. That's your prerogative. But definitely stay away from store-bought conventional dairy, because 99.9% of the time it's pasteurized, which means that it's heated at a high temperature, and all of the natural enzymes and any other benefit that it had before it was pasteurized, they're gone. And you're talking about inflammation in the human body because it's unstable. And then you also have pus. You don't see it, but it's in the milk. You also have globules of fat in the milk that are in clumps that you didn't see or won't see when you purchase the milk, because it is what they call homogenized. They put it in sort of a centrifuge and they spin it, and it's in clumps, and it breaks it down into fine particles. And then when it comes to the grocery store, when you pour it out, it looks like liquid. No fat globules anymore. But that's how it looked before it got there. And then they give these animals antibiotics and hormones. I'm talking about the cows, the dairy cattle. They give them hormones and antibiotics and other medications because these animals are sick, because they're raised in such a condition where they're congested, trying to get their product to the market. These farmers, these commercial farmers are who I'm talking about. They need to get the milk to the market so that they can make money. So they have all of these cattle cramped up in this environment together, and they become sick. So they have to give them medication. Guess who's consuming their medication from the milk? We are. Guess who's consuming estrogen-based hormones from those cattle as well, from the hormones that they're giving the cattle? We are. They're giving them extra hormones so they can produce milk faster as well. But we are the ones that's paying for it in the medical room, in the hospital, in the emergency room, in the hospital, and ultimately ending up, unfortunately, in the morgue. So, I just pointed out 5 things that cause cancer in the human body. There are alternatives to these items. I want you to do some research on your own as well. Don't let me or anybody else like myself on YouTube be the only resource that you have. Do your own due diligence so that you're convinced and that you're convicted in what you say you believe in and what you practice. So again, I'm going to recap. Artificial sweeteners and refined sugar, that's number 1. Genetically modified foods, that's number 2. Conventional meats full of hormones, steroids, antibiotics, and genetically modified corn and soy and so forth. Number 4, hydrogenated oils. Corn oil, safflower, sunflower, cottonseed oil, and even vegetable oil. And the last one was conventional dairy. That is the dairy that's been pasteurized and homogenized, that contains a whole lot of bad things that the human body is not intended to experience. Okay, I hope that this video was of some value and or benefit to you. If it was, please give me a thumbs up. That's all you have to do. If you want to comment, that's fine. I hope it's a pleasant one. And leave your questions and your comments in the comment section below, and I will do my very best to answer you and to respond to you. And I get a lot of positive feedback from my channel, and if you noticed, I try to respond to virtually everyone that sends me a response by way of comment. That's just who I am. I'll take the time and I'll say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And sometimes I'll go a little bit longer depending on what you're saying in the context of what you're saying. I'll make a comment and tell you how much I appreciate you and your comments and your thoughts about my videos. So please do leave a comment and like it and share it with someone that you love and care about. And in the meantime, this is Brother Teacher, and so long.